With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Hey listeners, SJ here. What you're about to listen to is an excerpt from our recent 15-year anniversary celebration for Zoweh called A Night of Stories, where we shared about the origins of Zoweh, honored folks from those early years, shared about the growth of the ministry, and where we're headed in the future. It was a wonderful night filled with, as you might have guessed, great stories, and we wanted to share some of those with you. Hope you enjoy it.
I remember, brothers, when we were looking at logos, because branding and all that stuff back when we started in 05, 06, filing a paper, and what are we going to be called? What's it going to look like? If you know what Zoweh means, and what I love about even tonight, it's a 15-year celebration of Zoweh. Well, Zoweh is the Greek word for life. It's really a celebration of 15 years of life, capital L, life in the kingdom together. And so I remember when the logo was what's it going to look like? How might we be known, out there? And so I contacted a friend in Baltimore who had a marketing company. I described what was on my heart. We'd had a lot of conversations. And so he sends me what you now know as the Zoweh logo, the diamond heart, covered in the canopy, the gold canopy of God, His love and protection, in alignment, the heart in alignment. So now I was talking about that. He sent it to me really quick, like within a day or so. And when he sent it to me, I went, that's it. I called him, I said, tell me the story. He said, when you were talking to me, that's all I could see. And so is this the golden arch, the love of God over our hearts and our hearts under the provision and the protection of God? I said, it's the only one I got. You think it'll work? I said, it's the one. When you know, you know. When we were starting out, right, we were kind of the wild at heart guys, kind of in 06 and 07, and then we were the small group guys. I'm going to introduce a couple other guys in a minute. But I can remember, like Robin and I, neither one, like our checkbook is kind of a mess, okay? Well, the federal government wants you to file things when you have a 501c3. You need accounting, you need bookkeeping. I remember Janie Musgrave. Well, I'll help you guys. And so Janie Musgrave was our first bookkeeper. And there's other people that I want to give some shout out. Our first conference coordinator, here's our conference coordinator now, but the one who paved the way, even before Sherry took that off of my shoulders in many ways, was James Butler, JB. Shout out to JB. He's online tonight watching. Bro, you were amazing in those early Top Gun events. And then he would go up in the booth. So he also did our audio and video with Patrick. And this was back when the DVDs were actually on little players queued up. That was the sophistication of it. We were really rolling back then. Amazing how we saw some of those happen. So James Butler. But Patrick Dunnigan, who's still with me, amazingly, he's running the simulcast in the booth tonight. So I would say he was the first audio, video, and booth guy, and is the only audio and video and booth guy, and I recognized him. And then our first web guy, our first real web guy, right? Stephen Price, would you stand, wave, be recognized? Yeah. So you'll meet some of the current folks now, but she's in Ecuador now. She has her own company, but Emily Barahona was our communications and graphics person. When she took over, we started looking good. She made us look really good with her graphics and the website, and her and Steve working on that. So I'm so grateful to Emily. And then Blake Anderson. So these guys weren't full-time salary. We were just mom and pop. They had their own gigs and stuff, and we were kind of pieced together. But Blake was the first person who got in the boat as a teammate on salary. Come with, raise some money, help us do this. Again, we had no paddles. Blake had strong arms, though, man. He could go. So, Blake, thank you for trusting me and stepping into that. I love what you do now and how you're doing it, and hope you too. You guys are wonderful parts of our story. And then I think about some of the early board members. Again, I'm going to get to a couple guys, but Scott Milkey, for being on those years that we're just trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure it out, but man, yeah, that's right. We even shared an office for some years, you know. We had Chris Combs and Huntley and Cuthrell and just so many great guys on that board. So speaking of good men who said yes, I want to bring up two men from the beginning stepped in, Tom Benner and Jim Chenet. Jim Chenet actually introduced me to Tom. When we were doing the early Zoweh projects, Jim somehow brokered a deal with Tom and his company. I mean, Bay Hill was an incredible invitation to go and share what we were sharing and offer that. But Tom led us into his company because we were looking at it kind of in a marketplace model. But honestly, folks, the marketplace wasn't big enough for what was going to happen. But Tom was part of us learning our swing, organizing our sessions and stuff like that. And when I think about your service, Tom, on the board, the times on your and Pat's porch, I mean, redemptive community was happening. You were a gardener. You were a gardener in the redemptive community and helped us clear a lot of space and plant a lot of things, and still are. And I'm so grateful as you come up. And Jim, taking a turn on the board, leading our medic charge now, but just being with me all these years. I can't thank you guys enough. So I'd love for you to come share just a couple of your stories, what you remember and the good that God has been doing in your lives.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Brother, how great it is to be among these men, huh? And this reunion, thank you all, actually. You've all contributed in many different ways to this incredible journey. So thank you. Thank you for being here, taking the time tonight to be here. So I first met Michael, probably 2003 at the Chapel Hill Bible Church. Somebody said after the service, hey, that guy over there works with athletes on the Duke campus. He's a big shot. So I thought, well, I like athletes. I should meet him. And I was just hanging up a shingle as a life coach, business coach, and I could sense that he was in some kind of transition, and I focused on men in transition, so I thought this was a great opportunity for me. I was a fairly new Christian. I came to Christ late in life. He saw me as a really lost soldier out there and needed some direction. So we started meeting at Jason's Deli every other week, I think, Tuesday for lunch, and just got to be great friends. Early in those days, we had our first conference. Our first conference was at the beach in February of 2006. I found my notebook from that conference the other day, was looking through the notes, and I still have handwritten notes from the three guys that were in my four-person group, Tad Fisher, Sam Hutchinson, and Tom Benner. And I was looking at those handwritten notes, and they mean so much to me. It's the first time I've heard my life started to change at that conference. Shortly after that, we got involved in the board. And there were really only two problems with the board in those days. One is we didn't have a clue what to do or how to do it. Michael was hoping that we would be more helping him with tasks. And we just enjoyed the relationship, the fun part, the doing things together. The other problem with the board in those days is we had no infrastructure. I mean, I can remember every month at the meeting asking for some simple questions. You know, how many people are involved? Do we have any donations from last month? How many donations? And we just couldn't answer those questions. We didn't have that infrastructure yet. It was a real struggle. And so Michael quickly cleaned us all out of the board and got some guys that knew what they were doing. But it was about this time that we stumbled on or discovered or got lucky. I think the main principle, the cornerstone of what Zoweh is now, and we describe it in several different ways. It's intimacy, oneness, and connectedness with God and with others. We talk a lot about redemptive communities, which come from redemptive friendships. So we stumbled on this whole importance of friendship thing, and that was hard for me. I'm a head guy. I was always a head guy, and this friendship requires heart stuff and vulnerability. And so one of the ways that we developed it was we traveled a lot together. We went to a lot of different places. You mentioned the Bay Hill trip, but there was a place out in Colorado that they let us use called Horizon Quest. 5 guys went one time, JB, and we did all the great ranch kinds of things, but there was training. And then there were 4 couples that went one other time. We went, Gary Barkalow and his wife Lee did a calling retreat for couples out in New Mexico that we traveled to. We went to Wild at Heart conference. My first one, I didn't go at the early days. My first one wasn't until 2011. And again, that was a huge opportunity for me, a huge life-changing event. And we started having dinners together. 4 couples had dinners together every Tuesday night, usually at the South Point Mall, right, Jay? And then 4 or 5 of us met every Wednesday for lunch together. So we spent a lot of time together in this whole friendship, heart connection thing, which is the cornerstone now, started to develop then. And just how lucky am I to walk with men and women like you people and with the team that we have at Zoweh right here, and one of my best friends, Tom Benner. Thank you.
Marriage may be the most sacred of all human relationships. 2 people coming together as one. There may not be anything more powerful than 2 people walking with God together. It's kind of mind-boggling, actually. And because of the power and weight of marriage in the kingdom, it should not come as any surprise that marriage is violently opposed. It's a favorite target of the enemy. We believe this is why you don't have to look very far to find a marriage that is in trouble. Assaults on marriage and challenges to marriage are everywhere. But we at Zoweh know there is a way for couples to make a comeback. Learn how to fight back, enjoy being restored, and actually thrive in the midst of day-to-day battles of life. Marriage is worth fighting for, and having the right weapons and tools, training and orientation is crucial. That's why we created the Rendezvous Project, a 12-session video series recorded live during one of our recent Rendezvous Weekend marriage conferences. Through the Rendezvous Project, we hope to empower marriages to either take a weekend away together and host your own marriage retreat, or journey together in a weekly small group, discovering your true heart, the deep and beautiful heart of your marriage, the context of the larger story your marriage is in, and how to walk intimately with God together. For more information about the Rendezvous Project, visit therendezvousproject.com.
This is really fun seeing so many people here that I haven't seen for quite a while. When I think of what this night speaks to me, speaks to my heart, is the whole idea of despise not the days of small beginnings, because they were really small. When we started, I'll never forget this brilliant idea of having a conference. And Michael was a public speaker. He'd done quite a bit of it, but I had done none. And so here I am, goat roped into being the speaker. And I didn't know, really, I had no idea how this was going to go. But before the conference, about a week or 2 out, Michael was in his truck and he's calling me and he's having this borderline panic attack, like, what have we got ourselves into? This is not going to work. You remember this? And he came to my office and we sat and we prayed and we just talked each other off the ledge and decided, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to just see what happens. And so much of Zoweh is about baptism by fire. You find yourself doing stuff you've never done before, and that's one of Michael's glories. He'll put you in those positions and he'll trust you. And because of that, you get opportunities to go places you might not have gone. And that's been the story for me. I didn't have very many, what I would call good friends, especially men. I was in the church for 25 years before I came into the connection with the Ransom Heart Boot Camp and Michael and these guys. It was so good for me to have other men that were hungry for growing and wanted more, and that weren't just mailing it in and going to church and doing it, which is, it gets to be, for many of us, it gets to be like that because, you know, that passion that we start out with, somehow it fades. Well, the beautiful thing about having other men around you and women, and this is expanded not just for men, but for me as a man, it was the beginning of something that has just continued to grow and grow and grow, and we've been able to help each other in so many ways. And so when I hear stories about guys that are overcoming fear, that are now willing to engage with their wives and their kids, and they're seeing how unengaged they've been, which was where I was, and you see all this waking up. And it is really what we're about. It's what we want so much, is wake people up and turn them over to God and just see what happens. Start a fire. It's been fun. It's been great. I do have one special thing that I don't know if anybody else in Zoweh has. I've got a pair of pajamas with the logo on them. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If you ever go to a conference, leave something behind in the drawers, and when you get it back, it'll have a Zoweh logo on it. So just so you know, if you want more logos on your stuff, that's what you do. But I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad to be here. I love these people. We just love doing life together and getting to know all of you too. So God bless.
That's hilarious. Thank you, Tom and Jim. That's funny. I forgot about the accidental embroidery on Tom's jammies. But when Michael asked me to say a few words about redemptive community, my whole first part was exactly what Jim said. Every word that you said about friendships and how redemptive communities come from redemptive friendships and how we've been enjoying that these years together, and that has been so sweet. And it's also been really hard. We would not be being honest and authentic if we said every redemptive community has been all smiles and happy. That was smiles and happy. We didn't have any conflict at that one, maybe, I don't know. But there have been hard, brutally hard moments and relationships, and things fall apart. And it's been a journey of highs and lows and ups and downs, and we're learning how to navigate it. We're learning how to walk with God in it, and we're learning how to repair, and we're learning. And it's a journey. So redemptive community became a defining objective for us that we could both experience as well as offer to others and invite others into. And you probably are familiar with the redemptive community tenets if you've been to a weekend. And so they really are not a formula. It's not a formula for this is how every redemptive community needs to look. But there's some things that we have found to be helpful and life-giving. And so Michael asked me just to share two of those tenets that have been meaningful to me and significant for me. And the first one is really what Jim was talking about, that it needs to be small and intimate in order to really know and be known. I know for me that in a larger group, I'm more able to hide and more able to lose my voice and just sit quietly and let other people talk. Part of that is due to my story and where I'm pursuing and experiencing deeper healing. And part of it is simply just how the dynamic is of a smaller group can be conducive to feeling more safe and perhaps the freedom to be more vulnerable, to have the opportunity to be more intimately known, and where there's an invitation to more, to explore more with each other and to deeper healing and restoration. And so a lot of times those things happen in the context of relationships. That's how God designed it. So it's sweet to experience together. And then, like I said, repair and conflict and learning how to do some of those things together, which is out of my comfort zone. So learning how to do that has been important. The second redemptive community tenet that I've experienced to be vital is where a woman's heart and a man's heart and their glory is pursued and not their sin or even their usefulness. And I remember when our team was little bitty tiny, starting out at the office over by South Point. And I remember, Jim, I don't think you were at the table, but you were in the office, and it was Michael and me and Emily Barahona and Stephen Price. And I think it was just the four of us, and I may be forgetting someone. But I remember Michael talking this one day about glory, the glory of our lives, how each one of us uniquely brings the image of God to bear in this world in glorious ways, in brilliant ways. And so he was asking each one of us, what do you love to do? What are you most passionate about? What makes you come alive? That's your glory. And he really wanted to know around the table, each one of us. You're nodding your head, Stephen. You remember. So Stephen sorry I'm putting you on the spot. You don't mind, I don't think. But Stephen, in tears, shared, and he's our web guy, and we had been praying for a web guy and needing a web guy. I don't mean to diminish you to a web guy, but we needed you, and you were amazing, and we loved, and we wanted to hold on to you. Well, here Michael's asking this question, and Stephen says, through his tears, I have a counselor's heart. I want to be a counselor. Literally, how terrible is this? I literally thought, Michael, what are you doing? You're encouraging him to go do the very thing that, to live into his glory. And sure enough, Stephen, with our blessing, left us and went and got his master's in counseling and got scooped up by a group here in Durham, and he is doing what he is uniquely and brilliantly made to do, which is pursue and counsel the hearts of men and women. So I will never forget that story in my selfishness, but also through tears, because I was hearing your heart. And I want to affirm my husband, because that is what he does. He truly wants and desires to see men and women fully alive, like you said, Keith, coming alive, doing the things that they love to do and are passionate about doing. In 2011, Michael, with the help of some friends, published Search and Rescue. And before he began to write it, I remember him calling me from one of the Top Gun weekends. And he had just finished the session that has become a hallmark of the Zoweh weekends, 2 realms, 2 kingdoms that you're referring to, Jay. And as he came out of the session, Scott Stankiewicz grabbed him, stopped him on the stairs and said, Michael, you have got to write this stuff down. This stuff is so good. You have got to write this down, because men who can't be here, men who are not in this room, have to hear this. And so Michael said to me, Robin, he didn't realize that God had already put that on my heart. He had already given me a vision for that. It was already an outline on my laptop. But that's how Search and Rescue began. And then in 2015, I watched him do it again with Heart of a Warrior. And I remember watching him as he wrote, and he would read me portions of it that he was excited about. Those books changed everything, really, for Zoweh, and sent us in a new trajectory. And then in 2016, things changed again.
In 2008, when I first was introduced to Zoweh, and message of freedom and life and more, I didn't even really understand what that meant, but I just knew I wanted more of it.
We were made for more, and we all long for more, and there's something deep inside of us that knows that.
Why Zoweh exists is because we believe that we were made for more. And the mission of Zoweh is to create environments where men and women can connect with God and God with them to experience the more. We love the weekend retreats, we love the weekly get-togethers, and we love the one-on-one friendship. Those are all environments that we want to create.
We started out relatively small, really just a few friends, and we really got excited about the idea of Christianity having a deeper level to it, which brought not only salvation, but also healing and restoration and freedom.
You're telling me that Jesus actually said that, because I had never read the Bible like that. The freedom, what Jesus came for, set the captives free. So we must be in bondage. So it changed foundationally everything.
My life has been irreversibly changed since I became involved with Zoweh, and I feel like I'm a better man, a better person, a better father and husband, and I want to be a part of seeing that happen in other people's lives.
We feel like we get to offer life to people as we receive life from God, from our intimacy with God and with other people. That beautiful, the both and that Jesus said, love God and love others. That's what we get to do, and we are growing constantly, continuously in what does that look like?
The message is a message of freedom in life. It really is going deep into the heart of a person, a man or a woman, excavating those awesome pieces of gold and silver and the things that are covered up through wounds and hurts.
So what I love about Zoweh is it's a matter of the heart. The heart is central. It's not about the 1, 2, 3s, the 5 tips to a better marriage, or the 10 ways I can be a better wife or a better woman.
And there is something about Zoweh right now, of how they work with men, that's very appropriate for this time, this culture, this place.
We were made for oneness, connectedness, and intimacy with God, and that is experiential, that there is something about us that God would leave heaven and come to earth and move heaven and earth to redeem us, to recover us, to rescue us, to see us brought back to life.
I have learned about the heart of Jesus through my interactions with the Zoweh community, and that's what's so stunning and different.
Zoweh, to me, in the beginning, was a rescue. Zoweh, to me now, it's not as much my rescue anymore as it is going after the hearts of those that were in my position.
I continue to be involved in Zoweh simply because my hope is that all men and women would get to experience the same level of healing and restoration and freedom that my own heart has through what Jesus has done and the interactions with Zoweh.
It's all invitation. This is what life looks like. This is what the offer is, and how far would you like to go with that?
You know, a life that's oriented, a life that's pursuing more, and a life that is enjoying the freedom that Christ has accomplished for them is a man or woman who has nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to fear. That's what we want. And the reason that I think we responded the way that we did is because we saw immediately that's who Jesus was. That's who Jesus is. Nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to fear.
We hope you enjoyed that excerpt from the Night of Stories 15-year anniversary celebration for Zoweh. You can watch the full live stream of the event on our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube and search for Zoweh Ministries, and think about hitting the subscribe button while you're there. Also, I just want to say thanks so much, listeners, for your love and your support, your words and your messages of encouragement. Without you, Exploring More would not exist. If you've got questions or comments for us, want to send us just a message of encouragement, our email is exploringmore@zoweh.org, and we would ask that you share from your podcast platform of choice. Leave us a review. It helps us to be found. Michael and I will be back in the studio soon, and we look forward to exploring more with you.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.